I think that the actual size of the tariffs and trade on the Chinese economy is not that big a deal. And that, there's the 500 billion that they export. There's the size of that. They've got a giant economy and they can handle those types of things. So I don't think it's that big of a deal for them. I think the big deal is what the nature of the relationship is. Is this going to be a relationship in which there's sort of the give and take, or is this going to be an antagonistic relationship? I think that that's almost a war-like relationship. I don't think they like the term trade war as distinct from trade negotiation or dispute.
You think it's war-like?
I think that it is an exchange of painful acts and an intimidation kind of thing, rather than a negotiation of, what do you need? How can I help you? How can you help me? So I think it's gotten on a footing that I think is discomforting to Chinese
But there would be
officials.
people here who would say it's gotten uncomfortable because in this relationship negotiation that we've had to this point, Americans have fared less well. At least that's the perception in a lot of places. Do you think that's accurate? And is there a way to be a tougher negotiator without maybe ruffling the feathers quite as much?
Oh, yeah. I think tough negotiations, nobody is against tough negotiations. Every country understands that it needs to
It's the rhetoric.
It needs to do what's best in their country. But the question is, I think the real issue of China, a leader in China described it as follows. He said, in the United States, that unit that matters the most is the individual. You are a country of individualists. You protect individual property rights in a certain way. And if you understand our mentality, we are a family. In other words, the word country in China, in characters, is state family. And he says, when we run the country, we think about how you, a head of a family, would run the family. So it's very much more from a top down. It's very much more hierarchical. So the notion of China Inc., in other words, of course, there's almost a pyramid, and they think at the head of the family, at the head of the government, they think, what is best for China and my Chinese companies? And so that approach, very much different from our approach, which is this bottom-up. And it redefines so many things, how we handle data, how we handle each other, and so on. That's a very structural, important difference. It works for them. And so their notion, will you have the state-owned enterprises being helped by the government?
What stage are they in?
And how will you compete in that?
What stage are they in terms of the six stages?
The most important thing about debt is whether the debt's denominated in your currency or a foreign currency. Right. If it's in your currency, you can manage it, just like we managed it. You spread it out and you move it around and you monetize some of it. Right. In their case, the debt is denominated in their currency, most of those currencies. So they're going to be able to manage that, I think, well. And their corporate debt levels are high. They're going through the restructuring. But generally speaking, their debt levels are not as high as ours. And one of the great things is that they're doing it before a crisis. We do it in a very reactive way. And in their particular case, they know that they've got a debt situation, and they're in the process of managing it. I think that they'll manage it just fine. I think they'll manage their economy just fine. I don't think we're going to have any big, there'll be bumps along the way. There are recessions, slower growth, a little bit of that. But I think China will be, I think the big issue is our relationship with China over a period of time. I hope it doesn't follow a path that is very similar to the U.S.-Japanese path, where the economic tensions, the competing for trade routes, the competing for influence in different countries and all that, leads to an antagonism, leads to embargoes and so on.